Once upon a time, in the southern part of Nigeria, settled among the green hills and vast farmland, was the village of Abembe. Life in the village was simple, but it was far from peaceful. This was because Abembe was ruled by Chief Okenga. He was a man feared for his greed, brutality, and unquenchable appetite for power. His name causes fear into the heart of his people, who had learned to live under the weight of his absolute power. Okenga was not like the chief of neighboring villages, who cared for their people and sought harmony. No, Okenga cared only for himself. During the harvest season, he would send his guards to every household, demanding that the best of the crops be brought to his palace. His guards, dressed in red uniform, would march door to door, shouting, "Chief Okenga demands his share. Bring out the yams, the millet, the cassava." If anyone dared to protest, the punishment was quick and brutal. Some were beaten, others were banished, and a few were even killed as a warning to the rest. The villagers lived in constant fear, whispering their grievances only in the dead of the night. How long can we survive like this? An old man named Okenga would often ask his neighbors. It takes everything from us. One day there will be nothing left to give. But Okenga's greed did not stop at crops and livestock. He also had an unquenchable desire for women. Whenever a man died in the village, Okenga would summon the widow to his palace. "Bring her to me," he would order his guards. The women had no choice but to obey, becoming part of his growing concubines. Over the years, Chief Okenga accumulated many wives, but despite all his wealth and power, he could not father a child. This failure bites at him, fueling his anger and making him even more heartless. One day, as Okenga sat on his throne, he had an idea. "I will build the largest storehouse this village has ever seen," he declared. "I will fill it with wealth, food, and treasures until I am the richest and most powerful man in all the land." He summoned his chief builder, a fearful man named Ozioma, and ordered him to draw up plans for the warehouse. The construction began immediately. Men, women, and even children were forced to work from dawn until midnight, hauling heavy stones and cutting down massive trees. The villagers' hand bleeds and their back ache, but they had no choice. To refuse Okenga's order was to invite death. After months of heavy labor, the warehouse was completed. It was tall and imposing, a symbol of Okenga's greed. But Chief Okenga was not satisfied. "What use is a warehouse if it is empty?" he said to himself. So he raised taxes on his people, demanding more crops, livestock, and goods. The villagers groaned under the weight of this demand. Many families went hungry. Some had nothing left to give, but Okenga didn't care. He would sit on his throne and order his guards to go from house to house and take by force any farm crops or livestock they could find. Soon the warehouse was filled to the brim with yams, sacks of millet, and jars of palm oil. Okenga would often stand inside, running his hand over the stack of goods. "I am the richest man alive," he would say to himself, smiling with satisfaction. Life in Abembe grew worse with each passing day. The people were starving, their children crying from hunger. Whisper of rebellion began to spread among the men of the village. One of the young farmers named Chijioke, who was known for his bravery, was a pioneer. "We cannot let this continue," he said. "Okenga must be stopped." Late one night, a group of men gathered in the forest to discuss their plan. They spoke in a very low tone. their faces illuminated by the light from the small fire. "We will confront him," Chijioke said. "If we band together, we can overpower his guards." But their plans did not remain secret for long. One of the guards overheard their whispers and reported back to Okenga. Chief Okenga's face darkened with rage when he heard the news. "So they think they can defy me," he roared. "Kill them all and sell their sons into slavery." The next morning, Okenga's guard swept through the village like a plague. The adult men were killed and their bodies left on the streets as a warning. The young boys were rounded up and sold to slave traders. Okenga also killed all his male guards out of fear of future revolt. By the end of the day, Okenga was the only man left in Abembe. With no man to work the farms or tend to the animals, life in Abembe became even more unbearable. Okenga, however, saw an opportunity. He ordered the women of the village to line up outside his hut every morning. "The beautiful ones will serve and warm my bed," he declared. "The rest will go and work in the farm." Every day, the women stood in the scorching sun, waiting to hear their fate. Those deemed beautiful were taken into Okenga's hut to warm his bed, while the others were sent to toil in the field from dawn to dusk. Okenga believed that with no other men in the village, he would finally be able to father a child. But despite his effort, the years passed and seasons rolled by, yet he remained childless. So out of desperation and over suspicious, Okenga decided to visit a powerful witch doctor who lived deep in the forest. Her name was Mama Ike, and she was known for her ability to create powerful charms and spells. Okenga arrived at her hut, his female guards carrying gifts of gold and livestock. "What do you seek, Chief Okenga?" Mama Ike asked, her voice as sharp as the knife she used to cut herbs. "I want protection," Okenga replied. "Make me a charm that will keep me safe from any attack." Mama Ike prepared a small leather pouch filled with mysterious powders and bones. "This charm will make you invisible," she said. "But there is one condition. If anyone other than you touches it, the charm will lose its power." Okenga nodded, his greed blinding him to the warning. He kept the charm close to his chest and told no one about it. But one night, as he laid on the bed with his most beautiful wife, Iyore, Okenga leaned close and whispered, "Iyore, my charm is the source of my power. If anyone else touches it, I will be defenseless." Iyore was different from Okenga's other wives. She was not only beautiful, but also intelligent and brave. She had seen the pain and suffering Okenga had caused. The villagers were starving, the fields were empty, and the laughter of children had disappeared from Abembe. She decided she couldn't stand by any longer. So when Okenga confided in her about the charm, she knew it was her chance. For weeks, Iyore gained Okenga's trust, always smiling and pretending to admire him. She listened carefully to his stories and laughed at his jokes, even when her heart was heavy with sorrow. She secretly began speaking to the other women in the village, planting seeds of rebellion. "When the time comes," she whispered, "we must act together." One day, she asked Chief Okenga, "My lord, what will you like for dinner tonight?" "Palm wine and roasted goat," Okenga said, licking his lips. That evening, Iyore prepared a special feast herself for Okenga, pouring him cup after cup of palm wine. "Drink, my lord," she said, her voice sweet as honey. "You deserve to celebrate your greatness." Okenga drank greedily, unaware of Iyore's true intentions. As he grew sleepy, Iyore reached for the charm. Her hands trembling, she knew that touching it would make Okenga powerless. Slowly, she untied the pouch and hid it in her clothes. When Okenga woke up the next morning, he felt strange. His body was weak and his head spun. "Iyore," he shouted, "where is my charm? Iyore, where is my charm? I hope you have not touched it," he cried. Iyore stepped forward, her voice steady. "Your charm is gone, my lord. Your reign of terror is over." "Iyore, you have killed me," he sobbed. Before Okenga could react, the women of the village stormed into the palace. Iyore had spent the night rallying them, convincing them that the time had come to fight back. Armed with farming tools and kitchen knives, the women overpowered Okenga and his few female guards. "This is for our husbands," one woman cried as she struck down a guard. "This is for our sons," shouted another. Okenga, now powerless and surrounded, begged for mercy. "Spare me," he cried. But the women showed no sympathy. They bound him with ropes and dragged him to the edge of the forest. Okenga was hung on one of the trees in the outskirts of the village. Without him, the people of Abembe began to rebuild their lives. The fields that were once overgrown with weeds were tilled and planted. The storehouse, which was a symbol of greed, was emptied and its content distributed among the villagers. They sang songs of freedom and worked together to restore their community. Iyore became a hero, her name forever written in the history of the village. Under her guidance, the people established a council to ensure no single person could ever hold so much power again. And so, Abembe finally knew peace. The laughter of children returned, and the people lived in harmony, free from the shadow of Chief Okenga. Their story became a legend, a reminder of the strength and resilience of those who stand together against oppression. That is the end of our story today, and I hope you learned one or two lessons from the story. If you do, please support us by subscribing to this channel and turn on your notification button so you'll be the first to be notified on our next episode. Please don't forget, support this channel, be part of this community, and we will not disappoint you. Until then, stay blessed and bye-bye.